SBI just released an NDA balanced playtest for patch number 4 for Albion Online, and it comes with some ridiculous changes that is absolutely going to shift the meta just a little bit into favor of no longer overpowered reflex. And as a fire staff, I'm actually kind of happy about it, but also at the same time, there is this one skill that got buffed that might make me switch to a completely different weapon in Stalker Corrupted Dungeons. And you may want to stick around until the end because this one's a doozy. This is a lot of changes and the meta is definitely going to shift just a little bit. So this is for patch number 4. And patch number 3 actually hasn't been live. It has not been updated to the live server, but we already have patch number 4 in the NDA server, or the NDA balanced playtest at least, and we're going to take a look at all of those changes. And let's look at the main goal for this patch. They say it is to improve some of the lesser used items and abilities, while also toning down some items that are too dominant in their respective metas. And you're going to see what that means in a short while. Let's look at the axis. So there's only one change for the axis here, the Raging Blades, the one that spin. It is going to be nerfed just a tad, damage per tick from 28 to 26. So again, not really the end of the world here, not even going to be noticed by a lot of axe players, I'm pretty sure. But again, it is a little bit of a nerf. But moving on to one of the things that I don't see anyone talking about, the deadly shot on the bow. This is the Q2, I believe. This is a straight line for the bow's cooldown from 3 seconds to 2 seconds. That's a 50% improvement. Energy cost also down. The debuff duration does go down as well from 6 to 5 seconds, but that doesn't even really matter. The stand time from 0.4 to 0.3. So we're looking at 3 buffs, this one and this one right here. And a little bit of a debuff, a slap on the wrist with the debuff duration, 6 to 5 seconds. Is not going to matter really. If you remember from the last patch, the official patch, I believe patch number 2, they increased the range of the deadly shot from 18 meters to 20 meters. This is an instantaneous cast skill. This offers a lot of poke damage, and now they're making it so that the cooldown is now only 2 seconds without food. So if you pair it with, say, a pork omelet, that's just more cooldowns or just more poke damage. The bows have already been like one of the rangiest weapons, as they should be because they're bows. But this is just going to make a lot of bow builds, especially in Corrupted Dungeons and like in 1v1 situations, also in the Mist. It's just going to be more annoying. And I feel like although the fire staff will receive some good changes indirectly, I feel like I am going to switch full time to bows just because the poke damage is going to be insane. You still have your frost shot. You can pair it with, say, Purity Sandals, and you just have a lot of poke, a lot of kite. And it's just, this is such a big change to deadly shots, especially combining it with the buff from 18 meters to 20 meter range on the previous patch. And yeah, especially in Stalker Corrupted Dungeons, in, say, Mists, you are just going to see a lot of pokes, a lot of kites, and there's going to be one more change for bows. That's going to be really, really interesting. But let's move on to the crossbow, the Death Ward Climax on the Boltcasters. They are making the damage a little bit more balanced. So if you don't know, the Death Ward Climax basically scales up. So the first tick damage in the previous patch is 9.2. They're making it 30.1. But the damage per tick increase is not going to be as much. So instead of making it super steep, they're going to increase the initial damage. And the angle of increase for the Death Ward Climax is not going to be as much. But the total damage is going to be unchanged. This is a really, really good buff because if you go for Corrupted Dungeons with the Sleep build with the Harvester Cap, usually you counter it either with a Cleanse, or if you don't have a Cleanse on your hood, you either counter it with the Gigantify Potion. But with that initial silence, they are going to be able to deal a lot of damage in the beginning and you might die a lot quicker in the hands of a bolt caster. But again, cleanse is a really good counter to that. Gigantify potion is still going to be a good counter to that. But just make sure that you have those items, or else you're just dead faster in the hands of a bolt caster. Now let's move on to the fire staff. This is actually a bit of a nerf, but in PvP situations, in 1v1s, in 2v2s, and even like in small scale, this doesn't matter. Who uses Raging Flare? I don't know who, but they are going to nerf it quite significantly, actually. They're making it more cooldown, twice as much. You're going to use more energy when you do use this skill. You are going to get actually a significant amount of damage on the initial one, and you're going to get an initial or more dots on that one. But again, this is not something that people use, at least in my experience. I've been a fire staff main for a while now. At least in PvP, I don't see this as a game changer. Maybe in PvE situations you can use this, but in my opinion, there are better options for the W ability of the fire staff. But hey, you are going to get a bit of a debuff in terms of cooldown and energy cost for the Raging Flare, but more damage in terms of the impact and the dots as well. Moving on to the Holy Staff, this is actually a huge debuff to a point where in small scale, you might reconsider what you are going to bring as a Holy Healer. I think the Great Holy could be a good swap for this if you are still leaning into using Holy Staffs. Maybe the Druidic Staff as well. If you're that guy, One Hand Nature could be a good option as well for a little bit of a small scale. But the Divine Intervention of the Hollowfall, this is the one that just jumps into a crowd, into your allies. And when you do hit one ally, your cooldown refund was 40%. And that is huge because the E of the Hollowfall actually doesn't deal a lot of heals. So it's almost as equal to 1 Q, the area Q for Hollowfall or Holy Staff in that matter. The refund is now from 40% to 25%. That is a huge debuff. I think we are going to shift away from Hollowfall in small scales and even in arenas. Great Holy is looking pretty good. And also the Divine Staff, there's going to be a change in the Divine Staff as well. That may also be a thing. You no longer have to wait for the shield to expire to heal. You can just heal, get the shield in 2v2 situations maybe. I'm not sure if that is a good option for small scale, but again, Great Holy and the One Hand Nature Staff is still going to be a good option for this meta shift in healing. For the maces, the Vendetta on the Camlin Mace, the cast is now uninterruptible. So if you want to throw that in, the one that sucks everyone into a small point, the Vendetta on the Camlin Mace, now, hey, you cannot be uninterrupted. So that's pretty good. I have not seen this interrupted that much, to be honest with you. You can just like cast it whenever anyways. But now you are guaranteed to cast that skill into your enemy's group. Moving on to the Nature Staff. The Elevated Nature on the Blight Staff is getting a little bit of a nerf. -3 on both healing alone and healing at least one ally in that case. 36 to 33 and 42 to 39 respectively. Now, in open world situations where Blight Staff is actually used, I'm not too sure if this actually is a huge enough debuff to sway away nature healers from using the Blight Staff. I still think it's a pretty good option. It's not going to be your number one option, but it is a good one if you want to heal in a group setting, in a small scale setting, in ZVZs as well, where it's not really that important as long as you are healing your backline, your front line, or whatever. In bigger situations, bigger groups, this is not really a nerf, but hey, maybe in 1v1 Mist, although we normally don't see Blight Staffs there anymore, it's going to receive a little bit of a nerf there. The Spiritual Seed on the Druidic Staff, the recast cooldown from 30 seconds to 25 seconds. This is actually a really good buff. You now have 5 less seconds to wait if you do choose to recast the Druidic Staff. good for 2v2, good for a little bit of a small scale actually. Although again, not really used in a lot of these situations. You rarely see Druidic Staff in PvP situations. It's most likely used in 1v1, maybe in like Stalker Corrupted Dungeons, sometimes maybe once in a blue moon. But it is very popular in PvE to clear a lot of those mobs, get a lot of those heals. So Druidic Staff, still an okay buff for this one. Moving on to the Shapeshifters. Now, the reality feature, this is the Q ability on the Shapeshifters. They are moving a little bit more of the damage on that first hit because this can be recast. First hit damage improved from 87 to 101, and the second hit damage reduced just a little bit actually. So actually it's the same, just the same. They're just moving the damage from second hit to the first hit, essentially is what they're doing here. And I like it. I like it because no one really uses a lot of Shapeshifters in the current meta anymore. We used to see them in Corrupted Dungeons. We used to see them in the Mist. Now they have kind of disappeared in those meta. Now you do see Shapeshifters still in ZVZs, in small scale, in arenas. So they are still very popular there. But in that scenario, reality feature isn't really a good option. They usually go for Q4 or for the shield because they just do need the stacks. They don't deal a lot of damage, at least in ZVZs, if you are using your human form abilities. You're not as useful in a ZV situation, but you are still going to be useful in maybe like a 5v5 in arenas, in Hellgates. You are going to use that. Although the best option really there is the shred on the Q4. So again, this is going to be good in like meta, but there's that. The Wild Onslaught though on the Primal Staff is once again going to get nerfed. This was one of the more popular option when all of the Shapeshifters were introduced in the meta and or in the game. Wild Onslaught on the Primal Staff, the one that roars, the fear duration is now from 1.2 seconds to 1 second, and the cast time is doubled from 0.3 to 0.6. And yeah, consider the Primal Staff dead in all of the contents. Although this is not, again, this is not a big game changer. Just not having that extra 0.2 in the fear that you need to cast it just a little longer. I think we can just say this is the nail in the coffin for the Primal Staff. Unless they get buffed in next updates, next patches, you're not going to see Primal Staffs as much. So, you know, bears are going to hibernate. Moving on to Spears, ladies and gents, the Spectral Trident on the Trinity Spear. The jump speed increased from 12 to 15 seconds. Now, when I actually use the Trinity Spear, that is a little bit tricky. Landing your E ability on a very mobile player can be challenging. Now, I'm not saying it is incredibly difficult because you are unstoppable as soon as you jump and you do have that immunity while jumping. It is challenging in some situations, but now it is going to be easier from 12 to 15 jump speed, and the jump landing stand time as well. It's going to be reduced by 0.15 seconds. So you can, after you jump, you just start attacking with your full stack Q, with your auto attack speed and auto attack damage increase as well. So as a Fire Staff main, this is actually going to be a little bit of a problem because Trinity Spear, I do have a lot of trouble going against it, but Mage Robe is always still a thing. Now moving on to the swords, the Soulless Stream on the Galatine pair. There is going to be a bit of a buff here. The max health debuff from 6 to 10%. Across 0 to 3 stacks, you're going to get a lot of damage buff. Just a smidge, maybe enough to nudge it into the meta. Now, Galatine pair has been used in ZVZ years and years ago. This would be one of the damage dealers with the delayed blink into the back line, full stack, 3 stack damage into an E, just demolishes every player, especially the clothies, like the DPSs and the healers. Now, You rarely do see Galatine pairs in the ZVZ meta. At least when I played it, it's not the most popular option out there. So this bit of a buff may shift the meta just a tad, just a little bit, that maybe Galatine pair becomes relevant again in ZVZ or in small scale situations. Now, moving on to the helmets, the growing rage of the Royal Hood. This is the leather hood, cooldown from 30 seconds to 25 seconds, and the buff no longer expires if no damage was dealt while stacking. So if you don't know, the Royal Hood is when you activate the skill. As long as you don't deal damage, it just increases your damage as long as you don't deal one. And then it was in the past, if you don't deal damage, the stack just like disappears. Now this no longer disappears if no damage was dealt while stacking. All right, that's pretty good. I would want to see this again, maybe in like bomb squads, because this is very, very popular back then. We'll see. We'll see how this actually affects the meta. Not too sure about this one. Armor's electric jacket, electric field on Stalker jacket is now dead. 30 seconds to 40 seconds. If you remember last year, in the Mist specifically, everyone was using Stalker jackets. They had good damage. They were buffed. If you remember, last time they were buffed, it was to make sure that Spectre jacket wasn't the only option that you have. They were like, okay, Spectre jacket's cool. Now let's bring in the Stalker jacket, which essentially has the same effect without the damage dealt to the user. And they're like, the Stalker jacket's a really good option now. Go use it. Players used it, and they were like, oh, maybe a little too powerful there. So they nerfed it. They nerfed it. They nerfed it. They nerfed it. Now they just buried it, not 6 feet underground. This is more like 20 feet underground. Stalker jacket is essentially dead. Similar to the bear, the primal staff. They are going to hibernate until they get buffed again, maybe next year. But, you know, Stalker jacket had a good run. And now they're dead. The Requite on the Armor of Valor, it just added 0.4 resistances while channeling. If you don't know what this is the one that silences the enemy if you take damage while channeling. Although this was a little bit weird because most of the time when you are channeling something and it is a defensive, the resistances do have like some changes to help you while you're channeling. Now this is a good buff for Armor of Valor. You take less damage and you still deal the same damage to your enemies. Moving on to the shoes, ladies and gents. The evasive jump on the Royal shoes. Now the range from 12 meters to 14 meters, although the immunity duration is unchanged. So if you think about it, you can jump farther. The immunity duration is still the same, so you can jump farther and a little bit faster if, you know, physics. The time is the same. The distance is increased. So, you know, the speed should also be increased to cope with that extra 2 meters. So, not a lot of change there, but you can jump a little bit longer with the evasive jump. The positional swap on the Fiend sandals, they added the increase movement of targeted ally by 30% for 1 second. If you target an enemy, they will be slowed for 30% for 1 second. So, if you swap an enemy, they get movement speed, the target, not you. If you target an enemy, the target loses movement speed for 1 second. So again, not a huge deal. Still will be used for, I don't know, brimstone bombing, brimstone swap cheese. You can also go with maybe the blazing staff cheese as well in 1v1 situations. But outside of that, they are going to still be used the way they are being used right now. Not a lot of changes there. Here we go as well. The miscellaneous changes. The cluster change immunity now also gives you immunity to debuffs and dots. So this is just when you swap maps. You can still get stacked with like curse for some reason. Now they're going to change that. You are also immune to all of the debuffs and all of the dot effects, and also with the damage as well. All right. Now, they also added the missing AoE escalation for the following abilities. This is, you don't have to worry about this. Honestly, it's just, you don't have to worry much about this. But look at all of these skills. Now they have AoE escalation. And yeah, that's not much, not much to worry about. But this next one is very interesting. For the longest time, reflex have always been a good defensive. When in 1v1 situations, especially in corrupted dungeons or in the mist, when you do have the reflect, your enemy has to respect that reflect and not go all in when you do. Now, for this following skills, mostly fire staffs, not gonna lie, burning field, the area dot, artillery, and flaming phoenix under the dawn song, the area dot. So burning field has that initial damage. This is the Q2 ability of the fire staff. It has that initial damage when it hits you, and it has that DOT when the puddle is there. Same with artillery. It has 3 fireballs, it has direct damage, and it has area dots area as well, similar to the flaming phoenix on the dawn song. Now, you can still reflect the initial damage, but now you can no longer reflect the dots, which is the more powerful damage, I would say. If you have the opportunity, especially if you're, say, a spear with a deflecting spin, when you do see that artillery, and you know, you don't really use artillery if you're going against the Trinity spears or any spears for that matter, anything with reflect, huge reflect. You don't go with puddles because they can just stand in the puddles and reflect all of that and you just die. So this is also the same mentality or mindset when using it in ZVZs. You don't usually use artillery because when you artillery and a D-tank or a tank stands in that puddle along with his teammates, you just die. Now those strategies will no longer be viable. Now, would you say that is a huge buff to the fire staff? Yes, you can't deny that that is actually a huge buff to the fire staff because the biggest counter to the fire staff is reflect, although fire artillery and burning field in like 1v1 situations not really a thing. Now in ZVZ and small scale, that's a different story. This is more of a buff for small scale and ZVZ rather than 1v1 and 2v2 and all of that. Now, when you see this update, fire staff is now OP in 1v1 to 2v2. It's still very powerful, yes, but it's not going to be as much as a lot of players will say. And now I may be biased here. I may be biased. I like the change, but I rarely use artillery in 1v1 situations. I rarely use burning field in 1v1 situations and even in 2v2. So this is more of a ZVZ and small scale thing. Okay. The frozen hell as well for the icicle staff. You can no longer do that. Hellfire potion can also not be reflected. With the nasty wounds and the hooded tenacity, I didn't know like reflect was the counter to this. Never really knew that you could just reflect this. Also, this is a big one. This is a big one for the Raging Storm on Bow of Badon. Now, when you get hit by Bow of Badon, your first option really becomes, okay, I need to reflect this with a Hunter Hood. And their option becomes, okay, I need to use the Armor of Valor, which reflects your reflect in a different way, kind of thing. Now you can no longer reflect that. This is actually going to be very interesting because it's going to change some of the strategy. I'm not talking about corrupted dungeons here. It's going to change the strategy for both the enemy and the user of Bow of Badon, because you want, when you use that E on the Bow of Badon, you want your enemy to reflect it in any capacity so that you can use your Armor of Valor so you can deal more damage. Now that it's no longer reflectable, what would be your chest piece? It will be different. So it might shift a little bit. Now, if you are going into corrupted dungeons, if you are going into, say, the Mist, what would you choose? Would you still go with the Hunter Hood because it has good value? Or I think the better option here is switch to either Guardian Helmet or Soldier Helmet. I'm leaning more towards Soldier Helmet because you just negate all of the damages and it has more counterplay against other builds as well. And you don't get that reflect, you don't get that Armor of Valor counter as well. But in this case, it is going to change how you use the Bow of Badon and how you deal with Bow of Badon. So this is actually an interesting change, and I would love to test this out. You can no longer reflect that. That is pure damage into like Ray of Light and a Badon, and their only chance really is maybe a Soldier Helmet. If they don't have that, they can't do anything. A Mistwalker Jacket, maybe also a counter in 1v1 situations. But let's see. The Thorn Growth can no longer be reflected. This is something that I'm not too happy about, but you can no longer reflect the thorns in nature is very interesting. If you are a nature player in a 1v1 situation, this actually is a very good change for you, because what can they do about that? That's not a direct damage, that's a DOT. So they can't even use anything other than Soldier Helmet to just completely block that. But you have short cooldown, you have the heals in a 1v1 situation, and Reflect is kind of like the counter to it. Goes back to, what do? Do you go with Soldier Helmet, Guardian Helmet, Mistwalker Jacket? We'll see. I like it though. I like this shift from things that are really susceptible to reflex. Now they're not. I would love to see, because this is some exciting changes. And last but not the least, the Wall of Flames are no longer reflected. I have been using the Wall of Flames to cancel the deflecting spin of the spears, and most of the time I have been successful with it. But lately, actually, I had one match where I used the Wall of Flames. He used deflecting. He walked towards it first, and then used the deflecting spin, and I just died because there's dots on that. Now there's no longer a thing. You can no longer reflect the Wall of Flames. You can no longer reflect artillery. You can no longer reflect Burning Field. Exciting time for the Fire Staff, but honestly, I'm more excited for the Badon and for maybe Warbow and for all of these things that are going to be affected by the Deadly Shot with this one. And I like it. I like this change. A little bit of a shift in the meta. Hollow Fall dies, Boltcasters, now a little bit more valid. Bows in 1v1 situations are just going to be annoying, more annoying than what they are right now. But those are the changes. I know a lot of players are going to be like, Fire Staff didn't need a nerf, or Fire Staff didn't need a buff. Why are you buffing more fire? Now that's true mostly for small scale and ZVZ. And I feel like those players who are complaining about how powerful the Fire Staff really is more of like a 1v1 Corrupted Dungeon Mist kind of players. Not even a Mist. Maybe it's just like Corrupted Dungeon players. So for Corrupted Dungeon players, not really that much. But you may see more Artillery Q1 Fire Staffs rather than Q3 Flame Blast Fire Staffs, which the counter really is just walk away. Literally walk away if they have Artillery Q1. You don't even have to boots. You just walk away. It's the counter to that. So that is the changes coming to patch number 4. Remember, this is patch number 4. Patch number 3 is not yet live, ladies and gents, on the live server. Patch number 4 is going to be after this. So we are still going to talk about patch number 3 in the upcoming days. Not a lot of changes there, just a minor one. Patch number 4, though, is a lot bigger than patch number 3, and it is very exciting. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts. Rage in chat, but be respectful. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.